Easter Sunday. For most kids, it meant candy, colored eggs, and stories of resurrection. But for me, it became the day I stopped feeling safe in God's house. I was 6, maybe 7. Church had always been a second home. My parents were deeply religious, the kind who treated every Sunday like a holiday. Easter was even more intense. Long services, songs echoing through the stained glass windows, sermons that wrapped around your soul. But what I remember most about that day wasn't the service. It was what happened after. As usual, my parents walked me downstairs to the Sunday school classrooms, what our church called CCD. The church itself had a strange layout. A split level. Upstairs held the sanctuary, but the basement housed the classrooms. Technically a basement, sure, but you could also enter it from the sloped side parking lot. One heavy gray door sat beside the bathrooms. Always locked. Emergency use only. That's what we were told. The hallway down there stretched long, dimly lit, and lined with about 7 or 8 doors. Paper cutouts of lambs and crosses decorated the walls. Some teachers wore goofy bunny ears from the dollar store. Everyone was in high spirits. The egg hunt was coming later. I was supposed to be coloring a picture of the empty tomb. But the service had gone long and I couldn't wait. I raised my hand to go to the bathroom and got excused without much fuss. The hallway was quiet as I patted down in my little dress shoes. The bathroom was empty. The hum of the overhead lights filled the silence. That's when I heard it. A slow, deliberate scrape. Metal on metal. From the stall next to mine. Not the sound of a latch. Not shuffling feet. A dragging, uneven scratch, like someone was slowly running a piece of metal against the door. I froze, holding my breath. At 6, I wasn't easily spooked, but this didn't feel right. Still, I told myself it was another kid messing around. I finished quickly, trying not to let the sound crawl deeper into my skin. At the sink, I turned the faucet, trying to drown out whatever I thought I'd heard. Then I saw it in the mirror. The stall door opening, slowly, and out stepped a man. He was wearing an Easter bunny costume. First, I smiled. A kid's mind processes danger through the lens of wonder. Maybe it was a surprise visit. Maybe I was special. But the costume was wrong. The fur was grayish, not white. Matted. Stained. One ear drooped lower than the other. One eye looked like it had been stitched back on crooked. He didn't speak. He just stood there, halfway out the stall, staring with his head tilted slightly to the side. I said, "Hi." No reply. Then, he raised his arm, pointed to the heavy gray door. "You're the lucky chosen child," he finally said, voice muffled through the suit. "I have a gift for you outside." I nodded. I didn't hesitate. That's the part that haunts me the most. How eagerly I stepped toward that door. Because in my little mind, a gift from the Easter Bunny was a dream come true. The gray door creaked open. It shouldn't have. It was supposed to stay locked from the inside. But it opened, and I stepped out. The man followed close behind. He didn't say another word. He started walking across the church parking lot, holding my hand, toward the far corner, behind a dumpster and some bushes. I saw a car, half hidden. The back door slightly ajar. Still no candy. No basket. No joy. That was when I felt it, this quiet dread blooming in my chest. Then I saw it. Another Easter bunny. This one already standing outside the car. Same saggy fur. Same dead eyes. I stopped walking. My little brain stalled, trying to figure out if this was magic or a trick. Before I could move, before I could speak, a scream cut through the parking lot like a blade. Miss Sabrina, one of the Sunday school teachers. She must have come outside early to prep the egg hunt. She saw us. Saw me. Saw them. Her scream tore through me. The man's hand slipped from mine. He bolted. So did the second one. They dove into the car, doors slamming. Tires squealed as the car peeled out of the lot. I ran toward Miss Sabrina, sobbing. She scooped me up and held me tight. I told her everything, even the parts one didn't understand. I told her I thought I saw another kid in the back seat as the car sped away. Just a flash, barely a silhouette. But I was sure. The next hours were a blur. Police. Questions. My crying mom. My dad with his hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. Officers asked me what the kid looked like. I tried my best, but it was a split-second image. I didn't know what was real. No other kids were reported missing. The church had no security cameras. And the gray door? Still a mystery how it had been unlocked. The police believed the man, whoever he was, had a key. That he'd waited quietly in the stall until some poor kid walked in. That kid had been me. But what haunts me isn't just the costume or the dragging sound. It's the second figure. The one waiting by the car. Like this had been planned. And the fact that no one was ever caught. People say your childhood fears fade with age. That growing up makes the monsters go away. But for me, they just changed their shape. It was a few years after the church basement incident. I never talked about it much. I think my mind filed it under bad dream, even though I knew it wasn't. But every Easter, that memory clawed its way back into my chest. Fast forward to my teenage years. I was in high school, and Easter meant something totally different. No more baskets or Sunday school. Now, it meant long weekends and late-night sleepovers. That year, my friends and I had made our own version of Manhunt. A mix between hide and seek and Easter egg hunting, with a creepy twist. Each team would hide plastic eggs in the woods, and the other team had to find them while also catching the hiders. Simple rules. Lots of running. Plenty of yelling. That night, the air felt colder than usual. Not the kind of cold that bites the skin. The kind that pricks at something deeper. We were at Raz's house. His place sat right at the edge of a wooded patch. Big backyard. No neighbors for a half-mile. And his parents were out of town. We split into teams using a randomizer app. I ended up with Raz and Chuck. We were the seekers. The sun had just dipped below the trees. The world was soaked in twilight. Long shadows. Birdsong fading into silence. We each grabbed flashlights from Raz's garage and made our way outside. We set a 10-minute timer for both sides to prep, hiders to hide, seekers to stash the eggs. Then the game would begin. Once it did, we scattered in different directions. I veered left, into the thickest part of the woods. I kept my flashlight off. The moon gave enough light to move around, and I didn't want to give away my position. I'd only gone about 50 feet when something caught my eye. Movement. 20, maybe 30 feet ahead. A crouched figure behind a tree. I thought it was Race. He liked hiding close to the seekers, confident no one would suspect him being right under their nose. I crouched low, circling around to get behind him. My heart thudded with anticipation. I lunged, tapped him hard on the shoulder, and shouted, "Gotcha!" But when he turned around, I froze. It wasn't Race. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was a grown man. Dirty flannel shirt, pants torn at the knees, greasy hair slicked back, and wide, wild eyes that didn't blink. His face was pale, stretched tight like he hadn't slept in days. His lips cracked. I didn't even get a chance to scream. He tackled me to the ground like a predator. My back slammed into the dirt. His hands went straight to my throat. He pressed down hard, his weight crushing the air from my lungs. I clawed at his arms, but he was too strong. I tried to gasp, but no sound came. My vision blurred. I thought I was going to die. A beam of white light danced across the trees. Footsteps. The man looked up. He saw it too. He released me, sprang to his feet, and vanished into the woods. I lay there, gasping. Gravel and pine needles stuck to my skin. My throat burned. Chuck appeared seconds later, flashlight trembling in his hand. "I saw him," he shouted. "What the hell was that?" I couldn't answer. We ran back to the house together, stumbling over roots and stones, breathless and terrified. Once we got inside, Chuck grabbed his phone and called the others. He told them to get back immediately. Within minutes, we were all in Raz's living room, doors locked, flashlights clutched tight. Everyone was talking at once until Arthur, quiet, serious Arthur, spoke up. He said something that chilled the entire room. Before the game even began, before the timer was up, he had seen 2 people walking through the woods. Not running, walking, slowly, casually, like they were waiting. He thought it was a couple of us goofing off and breaking the rules. But none of us had doubled up. We all swore it, which meant one thing. There had been 3 strangers out there that night. 1 who attacked me, and 2 more wandering. Chuck and I shared a look. Neither of us said it aloud, but we were thinking the same thing. This wasn't random. This was organized. I told everyone we needed to call the police. But Raz panicked. "No," he said sharply. "We're not calling anyone." "What are you talking about?" I snapped. He said he was grounded. His parents didn't even know he was having friends over. If cops showed up, he'd be screwed. Expelled. Maybe worse. I couldn't believe it. "Dude, I was attacked," I said, still rubbing my neck. He didn't budge. The room fell into silence. Everyone looked uncomfortable, torn between doing what was right and not ruining Raz's life. Eventually I caved. "Fine," I muttered. "No cops." We tried to distract ourselves. Watched dumb movies. Ate junk food. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I went to bed early, heart still racing. I didn't sleep much. By morning, I was the first to leave. I didn't wait for breakfast. I didn't say goodbye. A week later, Raz texted me out of nowhere. Went back into the woods. Collected the eggs. None were touched. I didn't reply. Because in my mind, those eggs weren't the only thing hidden in those woods. Something else had been waiting out there. Watching. Waiting for the game to start. It's strange how the past clings to you, especially when you think you've outrun it. 9 months had passed since the night in the woods. I'd started college in another state, far from Raz's backyard, far from the memory of plastic eggs and bruises on my neck. But Easter has a way of pulling things back into the light. My parents had planned a weekend trip to visit family, our usual tradition. We were headed to my Uncle John's place. A massive old house tucked deep in the countryside, surrounded by acres of forest on all sides. The kind of place that feels like it belongs in another century. I hadn't been excited. Most of my relatives were outdoorsy, hunting-obsessed types who didn't know what to make of me. I always felt like the odd one out. The only person close to my age was my cousin Kevin, 2 years older, easygoing, quiet. We always stuck together by default. We arrived late Friday night, the tires crunching across gravel as the headlights lit up the wooden porch. I barely said hello before heading to bed. The house was already packed. That kind of chaos doesn't feel festive. It feels suffocating. The next morning, Kevin and I escaped to the basement. We played pool on an old crooked table while everyone upstairs argued over food and decorations. There was no TV down there. Just the thud of the cue ball and Kevin's music playing quietly from his phone. He started talking about the woods behind the house, how they stretched for miles, untouched, silent. "Feels sacred," he said, staring off like it was a memory. "There's stuff out there no one's ever seen." I laughed it off. I wasn't in the mood for poetic nature walks. But eventually, boredom won. By mid-afternoon, Kevin convinced me to tag along. "It'll be peaceful," he said. "You'll like it." Uncle John gave us the nod. He was the kind of guy who let kids be kids. "Just be back before sunset," he said with a smile, handing Kevin a beat-up compass. "Don't trust your phone out there." We crossed the backyard and stepped into the woods. At first, it felt normal. Birds chirping, soft wind brushing against the leaves, the earthy smell of pine and dirt. Kevin led confidently. I followed, stepping over roots and ducking under branches. But as we walked deeper, the air shifted. It grew quieter, colder, like the forest was holding its breath. After about 20 minutes, I asked Kevin if he was sure he knew the way back. He laughed, too casually. "I grew up in these woods," he said. "Don't worry." Then we heard it, thunk. A heavy strike. Wood on wood. thunk, fuzz, thunk. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't footsteps. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate. Kevin stiffened. Could be someone chopping wood, he said, but his voice lacked confidence. We stood still. The sound stopped. I wanted to turn back, but Kevin pressed on. His curiosity had been ignited, and mine too, if I'm being honest. We followed the direction of the noise, stepping cautiously. That's when Kevin froze. He raised his arm and pointed. I looked up, and my blood turned to ice. 3 upside-down crosses, nailed to 3 trees, at least 15 feet off the ground. Way too high for anyone to have done without a ladder. The wood was dark, wet, fresh. We weren't alone. Before I could process it, I caught movement in my periphery. A man, standing between 2 trees, wearing a plaid shirt, beard thick, boots muddy. His stare was dead. You shouldn't be here, he said, locking eyes with me. Kevin stepped in front of me. Sorry, he said quickly. We're leaving. The man didn't move, didn't blink, just watched us. We backed away slowly, not daring to turn our backs. When we finally did, we moved fast, silent and tense. Every snapped twig felt like a gunshot. I kept looking over my shoulder. We made it back without being followed, or so we thought. Uncle John was waiting on the porch. When we told him what we saw, especially the man, his expression changed. Not fear, but something worse. Recognition. Except when we described the guy, he shook his head. No one around here fits that description, he said. But this is your land, I pushed. You know everyone, right? He didn't answer. We all agreed not to go back in the woods. That night, I couldn't sleep. My body was tired, but my thoughts were running wild. So I got up before dawn and wandered to the 3rd floor. Uncle John's study had a massive window that overlooked the backyard and the tree line beyond. I stepped toward it, stretching out the stiffness in my neck, when I saw it. Faint, flickering, a glow at the edge of the woods, like a small fire or torches. 3 of them, standing still, facing the house. My chest tightened. They weren't moving, just watching. I bolted downstairs, banged on Uncle John's bedroom door until he opened it. There's someone out there. I cried. He didn't hesitate, threw on pants, grabbed his rifle from under the bed. We stepped onto the back deck together. But by then, the lights were gone. The torches had vanished into the trees. Without a word, Uncle John lifted his rifle and fired 3 shots into the air. The house erupted. Relatives screamed. Lights turned on. Kids cried. But no one had answers. We never saw those figures again. Not that day. Not that night. The Easter celebration was ruined. Every adult in the house stayed alert for the rest of the day. Kevin and I barely spoke. The energy was poisoned. Before we left, Uncle John pulled me aside. If you ever see that glow again, he said, voice low, don't look back. Don't go outside. And for God's sake, never walk into those woods alone. 9 months have passed. Uncle John says nothing strange has happened since. But I still wonder, because that Easter, I realized something that stayed with me ever since. The real danger isn't always behind a mask. Sometimes, it's waiting just beyond the trees, watching.